Good evening and welcome to the Paranormal Lens podcast. My name is Chad Thomas. I'm here tonight with Jamie Widener and Kirstin Tricano. We are all with Jotnick's Paranormal. Now that we're on take two, guys, how's your week been?
It's been a week. Yeah, just busy with work. It's
Okay.
busy being in a busy season for that.
All right. Jamie, you, same thing?
Well, yeah, kind of. Well, two things. One, today's the warmest I've been in like a week or two, maybe. So,
Uh-huh.
it was like almost 30. Woohoo. And then as we were coming in, I must have a delay because the intro was still playing while you're talking, and I was thoroughly confused. So,
See, that happened to me like 2 weeks ago, and I'm like,
yeah.
you guys are talking, and I'm like, what's going on? Like,
That's I looked up. I was like, what? Wait, huh?
yep.
Great.
So it's not just me, thank goodness, because I thought it was nice. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, the professional podcasters that we are. What is going on? Gosh. No, it's been a good week actually. Not too bad. Today was insanely busy, which is a great thing in my industry because the weather is a factor. This cold weather's been a dampener on things, but
Hmm.
then all the winter weather stuff, snow, sleet, all that stuff. But it's finally starting to thaw out a little bit and warm up, and the world is moving again. So
Yeah.
yay!
And people want to wash their cars, right, Jamie? Doesn't that help? Or
That is exactly what because you got to get all the gunk off of it. That
hmm
happened during why all this crap is coming down. So
hmm
and all the things that stick to you. So
hmm
yeah, it never hurts. We like bad weather in moderation.
right. You
But
have to
in
be able
general,
to get to the
all
car
like
wash.
that. My industry as well, more so. But yeah,
Yeah. So, well, I made a trip to State College on Saturday, which was a very cold and um, snowy. There was, drifting across roads that I never would have thought because, the
hmm
college town with not much buildings out in some of the open areas, the roads were just drifting, and it
Mm.
was fun. It wasn't
yeah,
bad, but it was fun. So yeah, got to spend a couple hours with the college kids. She squeezed me in between this thing and that thing. So
and you found the improbable happens at times too,
hmm
right? Panera was out of mac and cheese. Is that what I heard?
that is correct. Like,
What
How
the what?
dare.
yeah,
That
that was not a good situation at all. So,
that that never can happen.
so, so anyway, not much going on in our lives in the paranormal world at this point. Where things are a little slow right now, but we always have a podcast Tuesday night to look forward to, right?
Yeah, and Bert washed his truck today. So yay! Thanks, Bert.
Perfect.
Woohoo!
So, all right. So should we just jump into tonight's topic?
Let's
Sure.
Yeah.
dive right in.
All
Sink
right.
both feet.
All right. Well, I don't have any images because elementals aren't something that we see every day or really can imagine.
Hold on, Chad. You mean we're not going to watch the Disney Pixar movie Elemental?
Oh, I was looking
I
forward to that.
I don't
I
have
what? Wait, what? Huh?
I don't have copyright permission for that. I hope we don't even have to go back and bleep that out, Jamie. Because
The mouse is after us again.
again, yep. So no, but I have an interesting presentation, at least in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to it, and I can't wait to hear what you guys think. And I have an interesting question at the end for you guys to think about a little bit too. So
Cool.
here we go. Um, so when we talk about the paranormal today, the conversation almost always starts and ends with ghosts. We're obsessed with our own reflection, and we picture spirits through a strictly human lens. The soul of the departed, former people who lived, died, and somehow remained behind. We imagine unfinished business, emotional trauma, or a stubborn attachment to a childhood home. This is what some researchers call hauntology, the idea that the past is constantly intruding upon the present. The human centric framework dominates everything, from ghost hunting television shows and EVP sessions to those candlelit haunted house tours. But here's the truth: this idea that all spirits were once human is not universal, and it is certainly not ancient. You might say it's a very narrow slice of a much larger much older pie. For the vast majority of human history, spirits were not primarily associated with death. They were actually associated with life, specifically the life of the planet. Long before the concept of a haunted house existed, people believed that forests had guardians, rivers had temperaments, storms carried intent, and fire was alive. The land itself was aware. In ancient Greece, they spoke of the daemon, not a demon, but a guiding spirit or an inhabitant of a place. So tonight we're shifting the focus of the paranormal lens outside the domestic world of ghosts and onto something much older and much stranger: elemental spirits. These are non human intelligences that were here long before we mastered fire and will likely remain long after we are gone. To understand what elementals are, and more importantly, what they are not, we first need to look at how modern belief narrowed our definition of the supernatural. Most modern research splits paranormal activity into three distinct buckets, and we talk about two of these all the time. Can you come up with what these three things are? Pop quiz.
Ghost stuff.
Well, we have the intelligent spirits, right?
Right, I know. I'm kidding, but
Yeah, yeah. So, what are they, Jamie? Yeah.
well, yeah. Was that well? Hold on. So I'm probably going to fumble this now that there's pressure. Um, well, intelligence,
Uh huh.
residual,
Uh huh.
and
Um,
yeah,
This is the one we don't talk about a lot.
right.
Non-human, non-human spirits.
Okay.
Um, so we'll talk about the intelligent spirits first. This is the classic ghost. It has a name. It has a history, a personality, and typically it wants to be heard. It wants to be noticed. It does things to get our attention. It wants to interact with us. The second is the residual haunting, which is an energetic imprint, a recording maybe embedded in the environment. And this is the foundation of stone tape theory, popularized by researchers like Thomas Charles Lethbridge. It's the idea that minerals, particularly quartz or limestone, can record an emotional event and play it back like a loop. This is often tied to psychometry as well, which is the theory that physical objects can hold onto the spiritual data of their owners. The third category, which comes up less often, is non human entities. This is the catch all for things that never lived as humans: angels, as Zach would say, demons, shadow figures, or interdimensional intelligences. So, what makes an elemental different from a demon or an angel? I would venture to say alignment. In Western theology, non-humans are usually considered good or evil, but elementals, well, non-humans are usually good or evil. They either want to save your soul or they want your soul, one or the other. Elementals, on the other hand, don't care. They're the middle ground. They are morally neutral. They might be the middle kingdom. Think of them as the immune system of a specific ecosystem. They are non human intelligences native to the natural world. They aren't bound to houses or personal objects. Instead, they are intrinsic to the environment itself. They protect, they react, and they exist in a state of isness. That's just the way it is. In occult literature, elementals are described as emotionally neutral. They are neither benevolent or malevolent. They are reactive. They respond to disruption or intrusion. You don't insult an elemental, you disturb its habitat. Now, the foundation of this belief comes from ancient Greece, where thinkers like Empedocles proposed that all matter was composed of four fundamental elements: earth, air, fire, and water. These weren't just physical substances, they were expressions of universal principles. During the Renaissance, the legendary alchemist Paracelsus transformed this philosophy into a spiritual reality in his work, a book on nymphs, sylphs, pygmies, and salamanders. He argued that just as humans inhabit the land and fish inhabit the water, They're invisible beings perfectly adapted to each elemental kingdom. Paracelsus named them the gnomes of the earth, the sylphs of the air, the undines of water, and the salamanders of fire. Now, according to Paracelsus, these were not immortal souls, but native creatures, invisible to the average person, but as real as the trees or the rain. So let's take a moment to look at the four kingdoms. The first kingdom is the earth, which is inhabited by the gnomes. Earth elementals are associated with the bones of the world: soil, stone, and mountains. They are described as dense, slow, and ancient. In folklore, they are the guardians of caves and hidden minerals. Unlike ghosts, they do not wander. They are fixed. Across cultures, they appear as the Landvetter in Norse tradition, or knockers in Cornish tin mines, and the kobolds of Germany. In 2008, a viral video from Clodamira, Argentina, claimed to show a creeping gnome. While many dismissed it as a hoax, the local reaction was telling. The community didn't treat it as a ghost, but as a duende, a spirit of the land that had been disturbed by local construction. In another account during a 2011 mining expansion in the Ural Mountains, workers reported hearing rhythmic tapping that preceded a series of impossible equipment failures. Not a ghost of a dead miner, but a localized pushback from the mountain itself. Seismic sensors picked up vibration that matched no known geological pattern. Yet, they ceased the moment the construction was halted. So, explain that one. Earth spirits are said to react to environmental scarring. They don't seek trouble, but they respond to wounds in their physical form. So, moving into the second kingdom, water, which is inhabited by the undines. Water elementals are fluid and changeable. They appear in myths as nymphs or river guardians. Water is a transitionary substance, which is why these spirits are often tied to the subconscious and represent the emotional landscape. They are the Rusalka of Slavic lore or the Kelpie of the Scots. In the Lake District of England, hikers have reported the Shimmering Woman. Unlike ghosts, she has no face and no history. She appears as a distortion in the water that moves against the current. In 2019, a group of researchers recorded auditory anomalies near a remote spring. Not voices, but musical patterns that appeared to respond to the frequency of the human heartbeat. Many witnesses near the Loch Ness area reported a phenomenon called the Man of the Water. It's not a physical creature, but a localized mood or a presence that seems to lure people toward the deep. Water locations often produce sensations of being watched or sudden, inexplicable shifts in mood. There is a dual nature here. Water provides life, but it can take it just as quickly. The third kingdom is air, and it is believed to be inhabited by the sylphs. They are the most elusive because air is invisible. Encounters are rarely visual, instead, they are sensations. Sudden pressure drops, localized gusts of wind in a still room, or the feeling of a presence at high altitudes. Pilots have long reported foo fighters, or atmospheric anomalies, transparent jellyfish like entities that move with an intelligent grace. Some researchers, like Trevor James Constable, theorize that these are biological inhabitants of the upper atmosphere, true air elementals. In the high Sierras, campers often report the whistling presence. It's not wind, it's a focused, intelligent sound that follows you, staying exactly 10 feet behind you, regardless of how fast you move. In occult traditions, the air is the element of the mind, and sifts are thought to influence inspiration and communication. The last kingdom is fire. Salamanders are believed to exist in this world. Salamanders are the most volatile. Fire requires fuel to exist, making its spirits inherently active. They are embodiments of transformation. During the 2021 wildfire season, several veteran firefighters in California reported fire whirls that seemed to hunt. These vortexes didn't follow the wind. They moved against it to consume specific structures, behaving with a predatory intelligence that baffled fire investigators. Others have noted what might be called impossible fires, blazes that burn in colors that don't match the chemical accelerants that are present. Folklore frequently warns against mocking fire, as it is seen as an invitation for the spirit to grow out of control. So, knowing where the elements are believed to reside, let's look at how we might be perceiving these encounters in the concept of agency. This is currently a serious topic in both psychology and physics. In psychology, we look at hyperactive agency detection, or HADD. Don't ask me where the second D comes from, I couldn't figure it out. But HADD is a cognitive bias where humans overattribute events to intentional agents rather than natural causes. This is an evolutionary survival mechanism. If you hear a rustle in the grass, it's safer to assume that it's a predator with agency than it is to assume that it's just the wind. We are hardwired to see intent in our surroundings. But in physics, we're beginning to explore the theory of panpsychism, the idea that consciousness is a fundamental property of matter, just like mass or charge. If an electron has minuscule amounts of agency, then a complex system like a mountain or a storm has a massive emergent agency. Under this lens, an element isn't a fairy tale. It's the emergent consciousness of an entire ecosystem behaving as a single intelligent entity. We also have to discuss the Oz effects, a phenomenon reported in national parks globally. Have you ever been in the woods and they go dead silent? No birds, no insects, no wind. It feels like stepping into a vacuum. Some researchers believe this is a territorial shield where the land itself is holding its breath, while an elemental presence assesses an intruder. This is often accompanied by infrasound. Research by the late Vic Tandy showed that certain environments, like a narrow canyon with high winds, can vibrate at 18.9 hertz, or the fear frequency. This triggers a sense of presence, and sometimes even visual distortions. While skeptics say this explains away elementals, others argue it's the physical mechanism that land uses to communicate its mood. Modern evidence of this environmental reaction is everywhere. In Iceland, the belief of the hidden people, which we talked about in a previous episode, is so strong that the government employs folklore consultants. In 2014, a road project in Galgarhorn lava field was halted because it threatened a sacred rock. Equipment failed, hydraulics snapped, and workers fell ill. The project only moved forward once the road was diverted. Then there was the Findhorn Foundation in Scotland in the 1960s. A community claimed to communicate with nature spirits to grow 40-pound cabbages in nutrient-poor sand. Agricultural experts were baffled. The soil was dead, yet the garden flourished as if it were a sentient partner. So, as usual, this research has brought up more questions than answers. And I don't know that as humans we're ever going to know the answers, but I believe the truth out there. The truth is out there. The critical difference remains. Ghosts are remnants of the past, but elements are ongoing. A ghost tells you what was there. An elemental tells you who is there right now. They remind us that the world is not a passive backdrop for human drama. Whether you view them as literal beings, energetic frequencies, or psychological reflections of your own biophilia, an innate love of life, elementals challenge the biggest assumption in the paranormal culture. They remind us that we are not the only conscious actors on this planet. Not everything is not everything unexplained is a ghost. Some things were never human. So let me pose an abstract question based on panpsychism to you while I cite some sources. So if consciousness is a fundamental property of matter, like mass or gravity, then a mountain has more consciousness than a human just based on sheer scale. Does that turn the idea of earth elemental into a mathematical certainty rather than a myth? And if it does, then the mountain is aware. What do you think its opinion of us is? Are we even significant enough to be noticed? Or are we just like a bacteria on its own skin? So, something to think about there. Sources for tonight's information include folklore-society.com, www.nb.no/en/ https // mythology.net, https www.nationalgeographic.com, www.anthro.ox.ac.uk, and then www.sacred-text.com. And this was reference for books on nymphs, sylphs, pygmies, and salamanders, and on the other spirits. Findhorn.org, findhorn.org /about-us/history. And this was the Findhorn Foundation Agriculture Anomaly Records. www.spr.ac.uk. Vic Tandy, The Ghost in the Machine, published in the Journal of Society for Psychic Research. And plato.stanford.edu. This was the research on panpsychism in the modern philosophy. So a lot of little details there in a short amount of time, but I found a lot of it pretty interesting. And I think there's ways to branch this off into more episodes. So, what do you guys think about elementals?
I'm still also very much thinking of the question that you proposed at the
Okay.
end.
Well, we can start there.
Yeah, I mean, if mountains have consciousness, I feel like we are so small compared to a vast majority of them that I feel like they would view us as like kind of like a parasite.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, man takes so much from Earth and everything. I feel like they would just be like, kind of see us like a tick.
Right. Jamie, you have a thought? I think you're muted.
You're muted, Jamie. Jamie, you're muted.
Oh, I am. I'm not actually. No, I am. No, I'm not. All right. Sorry.
No, you're
I
good.
forgot it. I was typing something a moment ago. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So I'm in this. I'm in the same spirit, pun intended, right?
Uh-huh.
That we're like a parasite, but maybe more so a rash than a parasite. Um,
Oh.
Mhm.
it's getting bigger and being unchecked. Like it's just growing, and maybe we need a salve of some kind. Salve is showing my age. My God, um,
Uh-huh.
things used to come in little metal tins. Remember that, Chad?
Yep.
Yeah, um, a topical lotion. Um, because we keep growing and growing and expanding and taking over things that are natural spaces.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so at some point, the parasite you become aware of it because it has made you ill enough to take care, and the care is the treatment of it. So I don't know. That's ominous. Maybe that there will come a day when the earth and it does something to reclaim itself or reclaim its spaces. But
Right.
I don't know that we're there yet.
Well, this is, and Jamie, I know you know that worked in Brunei for several years, which was
Mhm.
a very rich Southeast Asian country. Um, and they would go in and they would, the royal family would go in and build these buildings and take over rainforest, clear cut it, and just destroy it. And then they would abandon these buildings. And within 2 to 3 years, what they had built was already being reclaimed by the land. Like trees were growing up through these concrete structures, and it didn't take long for the earth to reclaim. And I'm hoping there's I guess I'm hoping there's hope there for that. Um, the Native Americans believed so much in this elemental, life. We're joking earlier about a Disney show, but the colors of the wind, that song from Pocahontas. She's talking about spirits and how that just is, you know, it's a spirit. It's the wind is a spirit, and the river is a spirit.
It kind of ties in the bird's comment here, right? It says, he says, I have been in the forest and I don't know if it was elemental, but I can feel the energy of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that sentiment completely. There's a calmness, in nature.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't have to be the woods. It could be, I grew up in Rivertown. So sitting, along the riverbank of the Susquehanna,
Mm-hmm.
just watching the water go by, there's a calmness in that, a
Mm-hmm.
connection.
Well,
Being on the water,
there,
somewhere. The
there's
ocean.
yeah, there's a grounding that happens when you spend time in the forest. And I know, I think if we go back to 2020, when we were all isolating from each other because of the pandemic, um, I spent a lot of times hiking and in the woods. And that's when I started to feel my reconnection with spirits and being able to pick up some of my abilities again. And I think the farther away we get from that, the more disconnected I feel. And I feel like I need to go spend more time in the woods and do that. There's a thing called forest bathing, where it's you just go sit in the forest and soak it in to to cleanse yourself. And I think it's there. I think that's a real thing, and I think that's all tied to the elementals. Some of the stuff that I found about the fires and how it just fire seemed to consume things that it shouldn't be because it was going the opposite direction of the wind, or the color of the fire was wrong because we know chemically certain things burn at certain colors. Well, then why is this fire burning the wrong color? It shouldn't be doing that. Is it because it has a life of its own?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
Well, there's a book. I go back to like the whole, you know, things becoming coming back to or going back to nature.
hmm
It's a book I read many years ago, and I'm pretty sure I've talked about it here before. But it's been a minute. It's called Earth Abides, and I forget the author. I'm sorry off the top of my head anyway. But it was written back in the late '60s, I believe, early '70s, somewhere in there. And a quick recap of it is a fellow who is kind of a loner, lives in San Francisco. He likes to go to nature, and his family has a cabin somewhere up in the mountains. He goes there to get away over a weekend or a week, whatnot. In the summertime, he's out hiking. He's climbing over some rocks. Puts a hand down to pull himself over. There's a rattlesnake, and it bites him. So he is trying to get back to his cabin. He's alone. This obviously is life threatening. Um, he makes it back. He does the best he can to take care of himself, but he's in the midst of the venom at that point, and he conks out. Wakes up at some point. Someone's at the door of the cabin, sees him stirring, takes off running. Just leaves. So he eventually wakes up, recovers, starts to make his way back to town. It's now several days later, and there's no one anywhere along his way. And the further and further he goes, the closer and closer he gets to what we would call true civilization. San Francisco is a big place. There's lots of things along the way. There's no one. And through the course of this, we find that there's been a virus that's taken people. And things are still functioning, and all of the electronic things, all of the systems are still up and running. We have lights, we have power, like street lights are still working. There's just nobody. And he gets to his home, his family's gone, Eventually, he starts finding people, survivors, if you will, along the way. But he decides to trek, and he goes across the country. And along the way, nature is starting to take back things. It's unkept now. Roadways are becoming cracked and broken. Things where grass is, fields and so forth, are becoming unkept and unruly. They're overgrowing. And he makes it to the East Coast, finds people along the way, comes back to the West Coast, collects people along the way, starts a new civilization. It's a fascinating book, actually. It's a very easy read. It's only available in paperback now. It was hardbound when I first found it. But Earth Abides, fantastic story. I recommend it. But the point of it is, with respects to nature, the Earth, nature in general will always win over, because we if we don't do the things that we're doing to take it away, it will come back on us. And I think that's fascinating
Hmm.
when we see it all the time in unkept areas. The fields and so forth is to be all of a sudden a mowed yard, especially in the springtime. I wait a while to mow my yard because I wanted to let the dandelions come up for the pollinators, the
Hmm.
wildflowers and things that are growing randomly in my all the weeds in my yard too, for that matter. Whatever they may pollinate off of, I let it go for an extra week or two, simply to get a chance to have, because without bees, we're in trouble. So,
Hmm.
but the idea that is, if we let it go, it comes back on us. It comes back to us.
Hmm.
But we keep paving over stuff, you know, and that stuff doesn't come back easily without being
Right.
removed.
And you kept referring to unkempt, what we consider unkempt, the grass not being cut, but that's the nature, that's the natural state of things.
Yes.
Like, grass will only grow so tall, but that's where it's supposed to be.
Yes.
And we've put so many plants into places that don't belong. I know a lot of people try to do natural or native wildflower gardens instead of some of these popular plants, because it's just so much better for nature. And I think it allows it to connect to itself and grow. And it's that the whole idea that there's these natural spirits is just fascinating to me. I think it's amazing. I don't know if you remember when we were investigating at Boobies that several people felt like there was an elemental down in the catacombs.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Kirsten, do you want to address it a little bit? I mean, you
Um yeah, so I remember there was an investigation where it was me, um someone on the team, and just two other people wanted to go down to the catacombs. So we were like, yeah, sure. We brought everything down to do the Estes method, and we went into the vat room, and we were sitting in there, and it felt very charged in the vat room, like uncomfortably charged. And we started doing the Estes. The guest had the headphones on, and I went to actually tap her out. And as I was reaching to tap her out, um, all she said she heard in the headphones was it sounded like this giant surge of electricity, and it was it almost like it was like this wave that like came out from her. So and it freaked both of us out, and it very much it from some of the questions we were asking, it seemed like it was definitely an elemental. I'm sorry, I can't hear you at all now.
It's just something dynamic has popped up here. It says you're speaking, but you're not. I don't know, some new screen. Weird.
I say I can hear you, Jamie.
Huh. Well, the question was I can hear him actually. Was that in the vat room for the experience you had? Was in the
It was in
catacomb?
the vat room, yes.
Okay. Huh. Well, and that room is unique, right? Because it's
Yes.
more of an enclosed space. It's a tighter spot, if you will. We seem to have activity in that space more so than the other areas in that lower catacomb. Interesting.
I mean, yeah, the vat room is. I've always liked the vat room.
Hmm. I agree. Well, you know, it's one of those things where you go to a place as frequently as we have, and you know the areas, the spots, the active spots, and many are, and none of the paranormal is on demand. And
Hmm.
if it is, then I don't trust it. On a regular sense. So with that, we always seem to have had recurrence of activity, but not always the same type of activity in that area, in that
There's
space.
always something different down there.
Yes, some kind of communication occurring, whether it be
Hmm.
flashlight activity, whether it be other equipment, sensitivities. Those who are sensitive. There's just been a read in that space that's been consistent, but
Hmm.
yet unique most of the time than the experience before it. And we do an investigation there. When we have done investigations there, we have 3 sessions in that area, and we discuss between the experience that we've all had, so that there's some cueing for the next group, perhaps, or just also the shared experience that we all can have. And even then, from session to session, which sometimes are within 45 minutes of each other, half an hour of each other, the experience is different.
Right.
And that's the cool thing, right, about the paranormal in general. It is a uniquely different experience for people who even are standing side by side, depending on their sensitivity, their receptors, the intention of the engagement on the other
Hmm.
from the other side, whatever that may be. So it's curious.
The reason I was asking if it was in the vat room was because the a lot of people experience that elemental feeling in the
Back
main room
there.
downstairs.
See, and I've always felt it back in the vat room.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah, that wall that that had candles on it, a lot of
yeah,
people felt that that was where there was an elemental that was part of that wall, which sort of makes sense considering that that is a bed like a bedrock wall. It wasn't brought
yeah.
in or anything like that.
Right.
And it's we refer to the scarring. A scar was created there to put the vat room or the catacombs in.
Yep.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe it was just certain people were able to sense that. I know our friend Kelly Miller sensed that, and I went down there with several guests, and they were just like, "Oh, I can't be in this room," because it was it was such an overpowering feeling. Not necessarily bad, but just we're not used to the feeling of elementals because it's not something that we typically try to interact with.
Right.
So,
I agree. And maybe, and I'm going to pose this as a thought then
mhm,
too. What if the creation of the space, like the catacombs at the brewery, are handmade, like they were
mhm,
cut in, and so that was intentional. And what if uh, the engagement that created the thing had negative or positive intent? Like there's reasons we do things.
right,
You know, what if that was done in a malicious way or some harmful way? I know we're digging a trench here, right?
right.
We're digging out a cavern, so it's got an intent. Like the intent is to make a space. But what if the energy of the intent has something to do with the engagement thereafter?
Maybe.
Because energy
Yeah.
continues.
Hmm. Well, the other thing is, one of the beliefs is that as they were digging the stuff out of the catacombs, they dumped that into the natural underground tunnels,
The cavity, yeah,
the
Hmm.
cavities. So now you're taking out of one place and filling in another place that nature has created.
right.
So now you're doing double damage.
There it is.
And you're talking about lime. Our area is limestone, so here's something that holds memory that you're now dumping other rock into. So it's just it's a ma- it's it you just the questions just become more and more, you know, I guess
Right.
philosophical, but you get more and more questions without answers.
Right.
It's interesting. So
I want to pose another question.
go for it.
Okay, let's leave the brewery behind for a moment
Hmm.
and think to our trip to Tala, Trans Allegheny Lunatic Asylum.
Hmm.
Okay, what's the one thing that we could not figure out the entirety of our trip or time in the building,
The whistling.
the
Yeah.
whistling, right? Everywhere we went, every layer, floor wise, every left to right, end of the building, wherever we went, we heard that steady, constant whistle.
Mm-hmm.
What if that was a means of communication as described in the air segment of your presentation?
Right.
That would make sense.
It
It,
was
it would
always
have never, if we didn't do this right now, this episode tonight, I would have never connected that thought to it.
right.
No,
That
as
there
soon
was
as you
something.
brought that up,
Right.
that's yeah.
And it was always just out of, it wasn't right there with us. It was always just
Yep.
outside of us. So it's, yeah.
Enough to make you think it was in the hall if you were in the room, or in a room if you were in the hall,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
down the way if you're in the hallway, think a room down that way, somewhere away from you, but never,
Mm-hmm.
never in close proximity.
Mm-hmm.
But very, very persistent and
Right.
very much the same tone and pitch and so forth.
Right. Yep. That's
Yeah.
definitely an interesting thought. So,
Maybe that means I'm not as unsensitive as I think I am.
oh,
Jamie, you're
Jamie,
learning.
Jamie, I think you're more sensitive than you give yourself credit for.
Nah,
So,
I'll
I
fight you
don't,
for
I don't know if we shared that. Heather said she got an EVP in there,
that.
but I
Yeah,
don't know if we shared this other one of Heather's.
we
She
did
said,
not yet. Yeah, I was getting there. Thank you.
okay. She said, I went horseback riding in the Nevada desert. We made a campfire, ate, and just sat and stared at the star-filled sky. You could almost hear the heartbeat of the desert, and it was an amazing experience.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I think when we take time to go out in that area and just connect with nature, we are connecting with these spirits and finding a grounding. Like I just again, I keep coming back to grounding ourselves, but I think we are definitely connecting with these spirits and making it. And I think it's a positive thing.
Mhm.
Like I said, elementals aren't good or bad; they're just there, and we tend to. So many people, I think, try to make them a negative thing because they just don't understand them. It's such a powerful spirit that they don't their senses are overwhelmed,
Yep.
which makes them feel like it's a negative thing.
Well, we're kind of taught to fear the things we don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a, I'll call it a closed mindedness versus open mindedness, but that is a response. Very much like you mentioned the rustling in the grass. We're trained through history to believe it's a predator because that's our fight or flight moment.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is, it could be the wind.
Right.
But our heightened, our sense of survival kicks in, and therefore, we put it to be something that might harm us, and therefore we're on guard.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to step back here too with the Bert's comment. Speaking of the whistling at Tala, he also caught it on recordings, as did I.
Mm-hmm.
It's clear as day on audio.
Yeah, that was an experience. Again, I would never have connected that until looking into this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Here's another good comment by Bert.
A lot.
How many times have you sat at a campfire and got lost in the flames? So,
A lot.
and
Yeah,
this
when
is
you
a
realize marshmallows just circle.
hmm but this fire is again a way that people connect with the spirit world because they use it in scrying. A single flame,
Mm-hmm.
you can sit and stare at a single flame and go into a trance-like state, and like a candle flame, and that is a very good way of connecting with the spirit world, and some very powerful for some people. So I wish it'd warm up and we could go camping and have a campfire at least.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
that's
want
how about
warmth.
how about that for a summer project? We rally whoever wants to go, and we find a spot somewhere, and we all just meet up and have a weekend.
Yes.
yeah, sounds good to me.
It's doable.
Road trip.
road trip.
See, I wasn't sure how we were going to turn anything from this episode into a road trip, and you got it.
Yes.
There's always an opportunity for a road trip.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
So, so what do you think? Elementals? Yes, are they there?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's very much the same to me, at least. It's very much the same as in the dealing with the traditional paranormal of the other two types of residual and intelligence. It is not always there for us to see until it's time for us to see or experience. And
Hmm.
not everyone's going to experience the same thing equally and evenly, even in the same moment.
That
All right.
makes sense.
It
I
looks like we're road tripping to the southern end.
Uh huh.
yes.
All right.
Um,
The Lynches have a big backyard and a big fire pit. Perfect. Book it.
but no, I feel like elementals are a thing. I mean, when you look into like paganism and even Wiccan, like to recharge or cleanse crystals, it's literally bury it into the earth. Use nature to cleanse what you like your crystals.
Hmm.
I, if there wasn't elementals, there would be no way to explain why that would work.
Right.
That's fair.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and Kirsten, not to go into too much detail, but we were on that private residential that I think we experienced an elemental. Well, I would almost
You
down
can't.
in what's that?
There was a piece of quartz in that room.
Hmm.
That quartz was there for a reason,
Right.
and I'm pretty sure it was yes an elemental.
Yeah. And I think again, I think it's just because people don't understand elementals that felt overpowering
Hmm.
because and you were dealing with two you were actually dealing with two forces of nature there because you're dealing with water because it was a spring house and you were dealing with this hole in the ground.
Yes,
So now you're dealing with two elements coming together and if you dig into it that way it starts to make sense some of the stuff that happened.
and
So,
just because they're like, oh, it's there's water here, it's a water elemental. I still think that was an earth elemental
mhm,
by the way, just the tone and everything. It
mhm,
felt very solid and grounding. It didn't feel fluid.
right. So, but anyway, but I think I think we definitely experienced that there.
Yes.
So yeah, I think I think we run into these elementals more than we realize. Um,
Yeah.
and I know one of the investigation we did up off Route 15, there was some elemental things there. So anyway, I digress. But yeah, nature definitely has its powers, and we can't ignore them.
So I want to ask this question then, in that spirit. There we go again. Um, what would you say? What would your well, maybe not what we would say, but what would you? How would you move toward or move through the process then of the engagement that you would have with an elemental? What is where does that go? There's a reason that there is engagement. So how would you take that,
Hmm.
or the why part? This is the why part. The
Right.
how is it's happening. The what is it. But the how. What's the advice here?
I think you just let it come to you and don't feel scared by it. Again, we're taught to fear what we don't know, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
And we have to get past that because this is a natural presence. This is part of why we're here. Um, and it is part, our culture is taken to we own everything, we
Hmm.
own the land. We don't own the land. Like we have bought it for our time, but we don't own this land. The land belongs to the earth, and this is something the Native Americans definitely got. They were stewards of the land. They didn't own it. They took care of it and they gave back. And I think that's what we have to look at. We have to figure out how to give back to nature and be part of that system. Um, I don't know. That's not really answering your question, Jamie, but I think it's we have to be a steward and we have to give back and we have to accept that it's there and just be a part of it. So
Yeah.
Okay.
that's my theory.
Sure.
I mean, mine's similar to yours.
So yeah. I think this is one that we could go on for hours and hours, and I think we could break each one of these kingdoms down and
Do a Steve Dills episode.
do episodes on each kingdom, and I think there's a lot here.
Yeah, there is, and these things are, because it's older than us, as people,
Mm-hmm.
and we are therefore the young to the group kind of thing. We're learning, and
Mm-hmm.
this is where um, we fail often, is that we think because we're current, we know more, and in this case we certainly do not
Right.
know enough, and that part of it is um, a bit of the problem, because we brush things aside, we skip past things, we don't take the time. And our world is busier now than it ever has been before, right? We don't take the time. We talk about this a lot
Mm-hmm.
here. We don't spend our time sitting down. Like, in a paranormal investigation, my favorite thing to do is just sit in a room and not say a word. let,
Mm-hmm.
let the space come to me, you know
Mm-hmm.
and instead of posing a 55 question essay, to whatever, just
Right.
blast a bunch of questions out, never waiting for an answer. And people do that, and that's their tactic, and that's fine. I have no challenge to it. But it's not the way I feel there's success. And my successes come from the calmness of a space, letting it happen, being in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
and pacing it that way. And we have kept going and going and going, and we're not stopping and listening and observing and engaging.
Well,
And that's maybe
and
where we should be.
right. And that's why it's hard to go to an investigation as a large group,
Mm-hmm.
because even with 10 people and you break up into say 3 groups, you still have 2 other people or more who are all wanting to ask questions, all wanting to find that solitude and sit there and just like you said, let the room come to you. It's hard to do. I mean, I wish that some of these places were affordable to go as 1 or 2 people and just,
Yes.
go go to go with 2 people and investigate Whitehill or, you know, I think we would get so much more if we could do that.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. And we've had that opportunity, at least in some smaller groups we've done,
Hmm.
where we could break off that way. And I think you're right to say that, and therefore we did have some better successes. Here's a great comment from Bert.
Ah,
You can't listen if you're talking.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, you can, and I'm not challenging this comment. I agree with it, but you can, because you're running audio, or video, either way, that's capturing something. So if you are, how many times have we had that, though, where there's been something in our audio that is there, but because we're talking, we're not catching it well enough, or we can't quite hear it well enough as we would if we were silent. Now, would it be there if we were silent? There's that tipping point
Right.
conversation, and I won't argue either way, I guess, because the engagement might be what brought it forward, but it might also be the intent to engage that you're
Hmm.
there that brought it forward as well. So it's a
Yeah.
tough spot.
Yeah.
Great point, Bert.
Yeah. It's definitely some interesting thoughts here. So,
All right. Well, as we're rounding to the top of the hour, um, would you guys like to move on? I think we've done well here.
yeah, I think
Yeah,
we
And
absolutely.
thanks for the topic. This was really
Yeah,
cool.
this was great.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I was a little worried when I was looking at the time. I'm like, oh, this went a lot faster than I thought. But then again, here we are almost into the next hour. So,
Yeah. Well, I'll take it from here then.
yeah.
So we are a week away from the Legend of the Loveland Frogman, next week's episode. And what a fun looking graphic we have there. That's not creepy.
Love it.
All right. Nice. Thanks, Chad.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, coming up afterwards on the 24th, the Tower of London, Crowns, Chains, and Ghosts. That's Kirstin's episode. Back to the UK. And Chad's going to take Where Silence Screams, Kings Park Psychiatric Facility. This is one I know nothing about and I'm really excited to learn on. So, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to take the episode on the March 10th of No Vacancy for the Living, the Goldfield Hotel out in Nevada. And then back to Kirstin for Echoes in the Halls, the Hauntings of the Stanley Hotel, staying out to the west. So, very, very cool. A couple of cool episodes coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And then how to find us. Obviously, we're here during this very live episode tonight. But if you're catching us later on the streaming services, you can always find us elsewhere too at jot-nyx paranormal.com. That's JOTT-NYX paranormal.com. That's our website. All the good stuff about us and our team is there. If you have a comment about an episode, you can always leave it in the notes of the episode. But if you have an idea for one, something else that you'd think we should cover for you, or an interesting topic, feel free to email us at paranormallenspodcast@gmail.com. That's all spelled out, Paranormal Lens Podcast
Yep.
at gmail.com.
Bert did that this afternoon. We got a suggestion from him. I don't know if you saw that yet or not.
I saw it.
Too busy to look today, so cool. All right, good. Thanks, Bert. And then all of our stuff, including the other socials that we carry, our Instagram or TikTok and all that good stuff, is available on Linktree, which is linktr.ee/paranormal lens. And of course, if you'd like to support our program and help us with the overhead costs of running the show, you can always buy me at coffee.com/paranormal9, or click on the QR code on the screen if you're watching.
Okay.
So there we are.
So yeah, thanks for taking that, Jamie. Any final thoughts here?
Get outside when it warms up and spend some time in nature.
Yes.
Yeah.
If it ever warms up.
Yeah. As soon as the trails aren't icy, go spend some time out there.
Get out there. Every year I have good intentions of doing that, just that. And occasionally I do, but not nearly as much as I'd like. So this is good motivation and encouragement.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Definitely need to go hike and find a rock that I can just sit on for another solid hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a discussion with one of my friends back in December that I really need to get out and do that. Like I said, in 2020, when I was out once a week at the very minimum hiking, I felt so connected, and now I'm my brain's fried, and I need that connection again. So yeah. So. Well, with that note, we have to remember that not every presence is a human spirit left behind. Elementals remind us that we walk on ancient ground, and sometimes what stirs in the dark is the earth itself, awake and aware. So until next time, stay alert, stay respectful, and stay curious. So, good night, everybody. We'll see you next week.